And good morning. We know that life is certainly filled with its ups and downs. Sir Isaac Newton taught us the laws of gravity, that what comes up must always come down, proved time and time again. We don't need to be a scientist or engineer to know that. We just need to watch the home run balls hit by Team Israel next week in the opening games of the World Baseball Classic in Florida, that what comes up must come down. But Judaism teaches us a very different principle. The principle that what goes down must come up, what all call the Jewish laws of gravity. The opposite trajectory from physics that our tradition tells us that we should always aim to follow, to seek to elevate and to lift up, most especially to lift up others who have fallen, called in Hebrew, Yerida Letzorach Aliyah, to descend for the sake of elevating. Like a basketball player who must bend their knees super low in order to get the lift to jump high and slam the ball through the hoop. I remember one summer at Camp Ramah in Canada, they offered a program called Kangaroo Shoes. You could put on special sneakers that had huge springs on the bottom, that when you put them on, by bending very low and compressing the springs, then when the tension was released, we flew up so high, propelling us to greater heights, to not just slam dunk a basketball, but to be inspired to lift up others. This past week during our Purim celebrations, we read Megillat Esther, the book of Esther, which says, Mordechai lo yichra. Mordechai would not kneel, velo yishtachaveh, and he would not bow low. Mordechai wouldn't bow and he wouldn't bend in Haman's presence. And he's questioned, why would Mordechai not bow? And the answer is, Asher hu Yehudi, because he was a Jew. This is a linchpin moment in the Purim story in the Megillah. If Mordechai would have bowed, our story would have been very different. And with his refusal to bow, he put our Jewish people in danger. In my weekly class earlier this week, we explored the question, why wouldn't Mordechai bow? I always joke that perhaps he had sciatica or arthritis. But does Judaism teach that we cannot bow before another person, that the only one we may bow before is God? Are we not allowed to lower ourselves in any situation? By not lowering himself, Mordechai set that Purim story in motion, requiring Queen Esther to risk her life by then lowering herself before the king in order to raise up the entire Jewish people and save them. And at the end of the Megillah, the roles are reversed. He who was lifted up fell down. Haman is lowered and killed. Mordechai is in fact lifted up at the end. In my class, we found that there are actually many examples in the Torah of our greatest heroes and leaders who bow before another person. Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, and Moses, just to name a few. So are we as Jews allowed to lower ourselves? Can we lower ourselves for the sake of lifting up others? Do the Jewish laws of gravity apply? Yerida letzorach aliyah, to lower ourselves in order to lift up others and put a spring in their step. Our Torah portion this week is one of the most important in the entire Torah, Ki Tisa. It continues with the national construction project of the Mishkan, building our holy desert sanctuary. We learn the laws of Shabbat with the familiar passage Vishamru, which we read this morning. After 40 days atop Mount Sinai, Moses hears the people shouting. He lowers himself from the holy work atop the mountain to find the Israelites worshiping the golden calf. He smashes that first set of tablets while God proposes to kill all the Jewish people, starting a new Israel just from Moses himself. But Moses lowers himself even more, prostrating on the ground, begging for forgiveness for the people, for God to save us. He seeks forgiveness, which is finally granted when God speaks face-to-face, panim el panim, to Moses, and gives us the 13 divine attributes, after lowering himself to save the Jewish people, lifting them up from their wicked ways. Moses then again prepares for his ascent back up to the top of the mountain by carving a second set of tablets from stone. and he climbs up, lifting himself up, elevating to that holy space in classroom to get the next set of 10 commandments. And both sets are kept, broken and whole, in the Aron HaKodesh. So I will confirm, our Torah portion confirms the fact that the Jewish law of gravity, Yerida L'Tzorach Aliyah, what goes down must come up, holds true, but only by our actions, only by helping others, by getting our hands dirty. When we do that, we achieve descent for the purpose of ascent, lowering ourselves in order to lift up others. Today begins our formal ascent and climb to Pesach, to Passover, just 3.5 weeks away. It's hard to believe. And we read the mysterious and strange laws of the red heifer, Para Adumah, the special annual ritual that was performed by our ancestors in the time of the temple, sacrificing a special red-haired cow that would purify and somehow cleanse the entire Jewish people in order that we could celebrate Pesach together. The most difficult part of the law that the rabbis say is this to understand, that the one who actually performs the ritual becomes unclean and impure by performing the ritual. By helping others, they actually get dirty. This too fits into the laws of gravity, the Jewish laws of gravity. Yerida L'Tzorach Aliyah. We need to get our hands dirty in this world. What goes down must come up, but it only comes up by our taking that first step in action to lift up others. We can achieve descent for ascent by lowering ourselves to lift up others. Like the story of Fuminori Tuchiko, the 75-year-old Japanese man who was traveling Europe last winter. He was in Poland as the war in Ukraine began. When the war began a little more than a year ago, he didn't flee the neighboring war zone to return home to Japan. He crossed the border into Ukraine in order to volunteer, to help with rescue efforts. He lived in a makeshift bomb shelter in the Kharkiv subway for 9 months alongside Ukrainian families. He created a social media charitable giving site that he uses to provide needed groceries, medicine, meals, and toys for children. Every single morning he cooks hot meals, which he distributes throughout Kharkiv. He set up a giving station for food outside a grocery store for needed supplies that Ukrainians could not afford. He sold his home in Japan, and from visiting Poland on vacation, he has made Ukraine and Kharkiv his home. And still today, Fuminori didn't flee the neighboring war zone. Fuminori delivers hot breakfasts all day round in the war-torn city of Kharkiv, and he lifts up others each and every day. So that Jewish law of gravity, what goes down must come up, is our call and our inspiration today. We can raise ourselves and our world by lifting up others. For life is filled with all those ups and downs, but Purim and now Pesach remind us that we have the opportunity each and every day to prove that Jewish gravity is correct. We have the opportunity to raise up those who have fallen, to do our part to hold up the world, to bend but not break. Like those kangaroo shoes, we should lower our knees and spring forward so that we can help others raise up to action. Shabbat Shalom.